to hear what you have to say, Miles. So whenever you are ready, we're willing and we're listening.
Alrighty. Cool. So, who is Miles? My name is Miles Mitchell. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm the middle child from a musically inclined family. Unfortunately, I didn't get too much of that. I was originally a marketing major only because I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life or where in life I really wanted to go. But my junior fall, I ended up taking CRT 101 because I needed hours and heard it was fun. And by November, I was kind of having that discussion with Zane about how do I switch to CRT full-time while still graduating on time, because like I said, it was my junior fall. So I'm a creative technology senior with a minor in business. I'm an avid fashion follower, passionate lacrosse fan / ex-player. I'm a music lover and an aspiring competitive weightlifter. I actually kind of hope to one day break the world record for squat for my weight division. So my theme is creating concepts that optimize function, value, and aesthetics through 3D computer-aided design. I was fortunate enough to take one of the first Fusion 360 classes at Berry and picked up an interest in 3D design software, so much so that I continued taking classes on LinkedIn Learning. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I even attempted to recreate some of the stuff I saw on the Fusion public online gallery. So Fusion is still one of the newer softwares in the 3D design world and has to compete with some more popular companies, which I will touch on later. But it has some pretty cool features such as sketching, freeform modeling, mesh modeling, and PCB design integration, which is actually some of the stuff we do on EasyEDA. I actually recently found out that you can do that within Fusion. So for my first project, so within Fusion, like I said, there are many different features that kind of let you show off and test your work. When designing something, it's called freeform sketching or surface modeling, which pretty much means creating aesthetic surfaces so that that also perform a function. So for my first project, I decided to show off some work that shows the animation feature exploded view. It kind of allowed me to give a breakdown of all the different components used to create the physical piece. My inspiration for this project comes from the video game Fortnite, as I wanted to bring to life one of my favorite guns, the tactical submachine gun. The biggest challenge when trying to recreate anything or when trying to freeform model anything is kind of to get that base. You want to get the base of the body down and then go back and kind of break those parts into different sections so you can add detail. So for the gun, it's not just one big outline shape. There are different levels, there are grooves, and there was detail pretty much put into it. You won't be able to do in the first round. You can't really add that detail in on the first round. Once you kind of go back and kind of break it into parts, you can then kind of put that special detail into it. So the goal of this project was if I wanted to print off the gun using a 3D printer and kind of assemble it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to finish this project until I was home, until I had some more free time. My next project is my intermediate 3D design final. So for those who aren't as vehicularly inclined, these are inline cylinders within a cylinder block engine or engine block. They fire up and down within the car, which ultimately help drive the wheels. So you have the exploded view to show some of the parts that make it up, along with the animation feature to kind of show how it moves within the engine. At the time, I kind of thought I was hot stuff and that making this would be pretty easy and simple, and I could kind of put in a little bit of time and make it kind of the night or two before it was due. Well, after my third iteration, I finally figured out how to get the motion down, because on the other two versions I tried to create, I can never exactly figure out how to get the head to stay in place as it kind of pumps up and down. So you can kind of see in the bottom left-hand picture that there's something different about the first cylinder on the far right compared to the rest. To get the motion you see in the GIF above it, I had to create a body that holds the piston in place as it rotates. And so then when I went to kind of finally render it and make the video, all I had to do was hide the body so I could get that proper motion. So the goal for this final project was to create a complete and clear design of a single product or device. It should have contained proper modeling techniques, should have been a fully dimensional drawing. I should have had a high quality image, and it should have been animated. And lastly, it should have aesthetically looked good. And I thought I kind of checked all those boxes off. So next we have the toy plane. So this is a different portion of Fusion. It's called mesh modeling. For those that don't really know, mesh modeling is a structural build of a 3D model consisting of polygons. A mesh model consists of vertices, edges, and faces that use the polygonal representation, such as triangles or quadrilaterals, to define a 3D shape. So how I think of it is when you're a kid and you're given putty, you can kind of sit down and kind of pull it and poke it and kind of mold it to whatever you want it to be. Within Fusion, it kind of gives you that option. You can kind of place a shape down and pull it, stretch it, poke it, do whatever with it to kind of form what you're looking for. So this toy plane actually had the starting shape of a cylinder, but it was then morphed into what you see in the top picture. The inspiration of this project came back from when I was younger. I always hated running errands with my parents, unless there was something in it for me, but I especially hated going into craft stores, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, etc. It was always extremely dull and boring, and I never really found that home decor section to be up to my 8-year-old standards. It wasn't until my dad bought me my first model airplane that I started to see how great of a show it really was. So I did want to recreate a model airplane within the mesh molding environment. Unfortunately, since we aren't at school, I couldn't use the supercomputer to render animated video like you saw in the previous slide with the engine block. So I did have to get creative and use a screen recording of a motion study. And so in that bottom right-hand picture or video, you can kind of see the propellers moving to make it look like the plane's actually flying. And for those that don't know, a motion study, it helps you analyze the rotation and translation of the different parts in your assembly. Based on the joints between the parts and parts and limits defined, you'll be able to quickly kind of determine how your parts interact. And it also helps you kind of see all the design issues. So something that wasn't discussed in the previous two projects was the use of the appearances library that Fusion comes with. Any type of material from metal to gemstones to cloth, it can kind of help you. It can be applied to your creation. And the cool part is, like, if it's not in that appearances library, you can always import it in. So it doesn't just kind of give you that, it doesn't just give you the color, but it also kind of gives you the physical material. So if I wanted to make that plane turn into a plane made out of yarn, I could apply that yarn feature to the plane and it would look and also be that color of yarn. Next, we have my rim. For my final project in Fusion, I presented a custom-made rim. My dream car / project car is a Jeep Wrangler. I kind of hope to one day save up enough to buy and simply just have one to work on and occasionally drive it, maybe like for a nice little Sunday afternoon. I don't want to buy one that's had some work done to it. I kind of want it to be from scratch so I can kind of create it and make it my own. In the past, I've asked people what they've kind of thought about the design. And besides the people that are trying to be courteous, a lot of people thought it was obnoxious, and which in this case is kind of what I was going for. My goal is to kind of have one of those Jeeps that has absolutely no business driving on the road. And so I kind of started with the rim, and from there I want to build up. So the cool thing about this is I originally made the model pretty small, only like within a couple inches, I believe. But when an object is fully constrained, you can relate one sketch entity to another sketch entity. So say part B is 8 inches and part D is 3 inches. If I were to raise, or if I were to make one of those bigger, that corresponding part would also become larger with it. So again, my goal for this was to bring a rim to life. And so my inspiration comes from that bottom left image. So now for my capstone work, kind of moving away from Fusion 360, I wanted to do something that I was passionate about and that I've had experience in, and of the very few things in life that I'm actually passionate about, lacrosse is where I landed. Much like hockey, it's a popular sport, more so up north, but it is played down south in some parts. Football and basketball still reign dominant down in the south, but lacrosse is one of the fastest growing sports in America. To give a quick description for those that don't know how lacrosse is played, it's a 10 versus 10. You're trying to get a little smaller rubber ball into a net with a goalie in front of it. If you mix the physicality of hockey, the positions of soccer, and the running of cross country, you'd have lacrosse. What my capstone project focuses in on is the physicality aspect that lies within the game, because what a lot of people don't really realize is that lacrosse is a very physical sport. So for example, you see in that picture on the left, that's one of my teammates, or actually one of my roommates, running into a lacrosse goal during the game. What people don't realize is the goals are pretty heavy, and he actually ended up concussing himself while running into that goal. He didn't really see where he was going. The picture below that is just kind of me getting a full windup with a 2-pound stick on somebody's arm. And then finally you have the GIF in the middle of the screen. You can see kind of towards the top, me hitting someone mid-game that was trying to score. So Lacrosse is the fastest sport on 2 feet, so the equipment must be light and easily accessible so that it does not interfere with the user's play. Over time, designers and manufacturing companies have had to adapt to make sure safety standards and the player's health remain high, but equipment also remains safe. Among the different types of personal protective equipment worn during the game, the helmet ranks #1 in terms of importance. A helmet's main function is to spread the impact over a larger area and to prevent direct impact to the skull. And so you can kind of see in these 2 pictures that I've posted, you have 2 of the top manufacturing companies for lacrosse helmets. You have Cascade, that's the Cascade S on the left, and then you have the Warrior Burn on the right. And so they do both use TPU, or thermoplastic polyurethane, which is a material that that kind of absorbs energy when impacted. So problems caused by players using old, outdated lacrosse helmets include concussions from collisions with other players, taking sticks to the head, being hit with the ball in the head, helmet collision, or simply in falling and hitting your head on the ground. I watched one of my teammates at the end of a practice slip and fall because he was using old cleats and kind of hit his head on the ground, and he actually ended up concussing himself for about 3 weeks. So this led me to my problem space. I wanted to explore the bounds of a lacrosse helmet and what happens when a certain area is affected by force. There are multiple ways you can get hit, like I explained before. So to do this, I created the Hit Me helmet. The goal of the Hit Me helmet was to represent to a user how much force is really being inflicted upon the wearer. To do this, I use force sensing resistors, Arduino, and processing. There's a sensor on the dummy's head underneath the helmet, and in correlation, there's a sensor on the outside of the helmet. When the sensors are struck, the value will be shown on a processing sketch along with a color-coordinated circle representing how hard the user's strike was. So for instance, you kind of see in that picture, there's a green circle, so everything is fine. There are also 2 other circles that can appear, a yellow circle, which is moderate, and a red circle, which is not great. So as I stated at the very beginning, Fusion 360 is still one of the newer softwares and is being improved daily. Some of the more popular 3D design softwares are shown above. You have SolidWorks on the left, Rhinoceros on the right, Blender being one of the better platforms in my opinion on the bottom, just because it is a free platform. I'm hoping that my skills from Fusion can transfer over into these softwares so that I become versatile and more valuable in the industry, because why just be a one-trick pony? Lastly, we have SQL, which is a programming language, which I'll speak on in the next slide. So for my future plans, as of right now, it is kind of difficult to try and find work because there happens to be a global pandemic occurring, but I do have a couple of leads. So first is SiggyWorks. The guy that owns the company is a full stack JavaScript developer with over 15 years of web dev experience. He asked me to come and be his freelance 3D designer for small projects. In the past, he has created a lot of video games. He helped create Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, and I think a couple of VeggieTale video games. And so he wants to create another video game as a side project. And like I said, he wants me to come along and kind of help him with some of the 3D aspects of it. Next is DoorDash, not the driver portion. I'm currently being outfitted to be a merchant operations associate role at the DoorDash location in LA. The job entails assisting the West Coast team with operational tasks in support of the merchants. I'd help determine the needs and wants of the merchants and work effectively to address them via email, phone, and in-person meetings. In addition, I'd also help with small projects. The only catch is that I need to have experience using a programming language called SQL or SQL, which I kind of showed in the last slide. I'm pretty sure they do put you through a training regimen, but regardless, I do kind of want to get a jump start on that if I do end up getting that role. What interests me more about this role is the location more than anything. I kind of believe that LA is more of a tech-centered area. And so as a side gig, if I did end up getting that job, I could do some freelance work within the 3D world to kind of build up a repertoire of my own and eventually be brought on somewhere. And that's it.